Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of System Link for Wednesday, the 12th of February 2025. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host Mike Hazelton from the Xbox Guide. Evening, Mike. How we doing? How's everything going?
Yeah, good evening. I'm pretty good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, feeling ready. Got quite a few headlines to talk about tonight. Thank you again, as always, Mike, for doing all of our prep. You don't get to see
When I
that.
pulled it together, I
Yeah.
was thinking there's hardly anything's happened this week, and then when I actually dug into it, it's not been too bad.
There's
So
a fair bit going on, but as always, yeah, you do this stuff behind the scenes. There's so much work you do for Burly Bird that doesn't kind of often will go unseen by everyone. So thank you for that. Let's dive straight into one of the strangest things that we had happen over the weekend was the PSN downtime. That we haven't had any kind of outage from them really in a major way for years, and it went sort of very unacknowledged. I saw that there was sort of some somewhat harsh memes going around where they edited like a fake social media post to say that Sony engineers realised that someone tried to install Concord on every PlayStation and they're working to remove it, which was, somewhat harsh. Evening, Big Manny, good to see you. Oh no, I'm dropping things. But the communication for that was really sort of, there wasn't really much acknowledgement other than the fact that apparently some users were experiencing issues. The compensation as well, sort of, a couple of days of free PS Plus, sort of fairly standard practice for them. But this was a real strange one. Just a really bizarre situation. We haven't really seen much of this kind of thing for a long time.
yeah, not great PR at a time when I think some of the base, PlayStation fans are not feeling particularly looked after. With the lineup, which hopefully will be remedied later this evening, but it's not what you need. Is extensive downtime that you don't acknowledge, and then you don't really, compensate people particularly well for the issues. So
particularly we had both Xbox and PlayStation increased their pricing for their sub services, and both cases cited improved infrastructure and ensuring high quality delivery, and you sort of have stuff like this happen. Reasonable things happen, things that can't be avoided. We get that, but I feel like when it's not that ancient history, all these price increases and the justifications around them, where there wasn't really any sort of noticeable improvement in the library or the offering, or indeed, as you've said here, their first party release slate, which has not been bad by any stretch, but has been quieter than years past. It's just bad optics. It's not great timing for them. And given, as you say, the timing as well of the state of play tonight, you don't really want there to be any bad news coming into something like that. You want the slate to be wiped clean.
Yeah, I feel like generally PSN feels more reliable than Xbox, just slightly. Like Xbox, you often have like a patchy hour here or there, or you can't load the dashboard, and
Party goes
on
down.
Xbox. I don't know how.
Yeah,
I don't know how it is on PlayStation, but on Xbox you can barely do anything if there's no
I have it with the store.
Internet.
Yeah, the store definitely
it happens
goes wonky
quite a lot. But I feel like because of the length of time that PSN was down, there's probably something else behind it. Obviously, we had the infamous issues back when it got hacked and it was offline for weeks, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So maybe they were trying to block an attack or something of some description, which is fair enough. But why not just tell people?
Just be explicit, as always. It's that open book the lack of an open communication from some of these publishers that really can be frustrating. Shout out to you, Big Manny, by the way. Just saw your message in chat. 6-month sub from Prime. Thank you so much. That's awesome, dude. Thank you so much for your support. It is really appreciated. For those of you audio listeners, we record System Link here on the Burly Bird Live Twitch channel every single Wednesday at between 9 and 9:15 is normally our kickoff. So please do consider checking out. If you do end up discovering the podcast either on YouTube, Spotify, or Podbean when the VOD goes up on a Thursday, please do consider tuning in, because you can get involved in the conversation. Plus, also, we have our community questions in our Discord, which we'll be jumping to later this evening when we start discussing the imminent arrival of another PlayStation State of Play. So keeping it sort of PlayStation for the time being, really interesting reveal from Ted Price in an interview recently where he mentioned that Resistance 4, which is one of my favourite Sony IP that they own. I used to love those games. I credit you, Mike, with introducing that series to me when you had your PS3.
Right.
So yeah, I've got to tip the Resistance hat to you, pal. Resistance 4 was pitched to Sony but turned down, much like we've seen a few instances where Sony Bend pitched Days Gone 2 and that was also denied. We've had obviously several high-profile cancellations. Last of Us Online being cancelled, or sort of at the time it was postponed indefinitely, and then it was officially ended. This, I don't know whether this is representative of this strange limbo that they found themselves in as they pivoted to live service. That didn't pan out, and now they're sort of pivoting right back with the change of leadership, with a new, renewed approach to their first party and the kind of games that people associate them with. I would have absolutely jumped all over a Resistance 4. The idea of having that as a current gen game, perhaps even maybe remastering. There's a trilogy set waiting to be desperately released there.
Yeah,
a trilogy re-release pack that's maybe not a remake in that sense, but a sort of easy to purchase PS5 native edition of those 3 games. I don't know how tricky that might be given the PS3's development architecture, but it just seemed like a great opportunity to leverage an IP that I think it wasn't sort of it wasn't God of War, it wasn't Uncharted, but Resistance, I feel like the sentiment is quite fond for that series. It certainly is for me. I mean, I remember playing through the co-op of those campaigns and just having a blast.
Yeah, it was amazing having co-op. That you can just rely on being in the games. I think there's definitely a gap in PlayStation. Well, there's lots of gaps at the moment, but on PS4, PS5 in general, there needs to be a Killzone or Resistance or something of that ilk. So I'll be really surprised if they're not developing something somewhere to fill that space, unless they really have just taken their eyes off the ball that much with the live service stuff. But it's a surprise. I don't know why, if the team wanted to make it, you wouldn't just let them go for it.
Yeah, precisely. Given also Insomniac's pedigree, after Spider-Man, after Ratchet, you kind of just, I feel like there's blank checks to be written there. They're up there in terms of, like, I think developers like Rare for me now, in terms of like their consistency and how honed their experiences are. So they're a seasoned developer. I kind of like the Coalition almost as well. I kind of put them on par with someone like that. Very seasoned, good. They know their hardware.
Well, and similar to Obsidian in terms of the amount they put out, that's like consistent quality. It doesn't take them, well, it may take them like 4 or 5 years to make a game, but they have a couple of projects on the go at a time, and the release cadence is really good, which is more important than ever when games are taking so long to get out the door.
Plus also we've seen that with Xbox, the issues with them having a consistent release schedule, putting content into their subscription. PlayStation obviously has a slightly different approach there. They don't have day one releases, but there is that need. We've seen the impact it's had, the negative effect that it's had on Xbox, having these large lingering gaps in their release schedule where there was nothing coming out, and then suddenly everything at once as they tried to claw back some market share before the end of a financial year. So it's definitely something that you look at a title like that, which you would hope perhaps wouldn't have quite the, unless it bloated in terms of ambition, but it would hope it wouldn't have quite the scope of, say, some of their really big first party titles. I always looked at Resistance as kind of like a AA sort of experience.
Yeah, I was going to say
by
that.
a AAA dev.
I was being harsh, but it's it's got, you can rely on it getting like 7s and high 7s kind of. It's going to be a good time.
One of the best 7s I think I've ever played is Resistance. I just think it's such a great wholesome experience for that. So they have all 3 of these. Xbox have bought most of them, but Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox have an incredible library now of IP that can be mined, and given the trend towards remakes, revisits, remasters, and re-releases of, say, older titles in trilogy sets, I don't think that's a never say never with that one. I think there's a possibility that could always be revisited.
Yeah, I think you do have to say, kind of on that theme, that it's a positive really that Sony have done some new stuff over the last couple of generations, instead of just focusing on like the PS3 IP. But there was a lot of new IP on PS3, and they've kept pushing new stuff. I know they get tarred with having all these remasters and remakes and stuff, and obviously I think that is fair criticism, but has definitely been scope for things like Killzone and Resistance, and Wipeout has been dormant for a long time, and people would love another Wipeout. So
for sure,
there's a few things there that they could definitely bring back, and I don't think people would be complaining.
No, not in the slightest. There's certainly a fondness for a lot of those old titles. But then equally, I'm glad that they also partnered with, and obviously they bought them now, but they partnered with Housemarque on Returnal. Returnal's one of my favourite PlayStation 5 games, and that was another new IP from them. So I guess they've become one of those teams where I'm like, a bit like Hazelight or Remedy, whatever you're cooking up, I'm going to be interested in checking out now, and if you can give them maybe a legacy IP to go with that, it's a match made in heaven. I mentioned Remedy really briefly. It's not in our itinerary, but something I've just remembered. I saw earlier, we've covered it a couple of times about Alan Wake 2 and Remedy's plans moving forward.
saw this as well.
Yeah, they finally hit profitability. So just over, 18 months after launch, they're now officially in profit. They've sold 2 million copies of that game, which, given the length of time that series was dormant, that's a huge achievement. And Alan Wake 2 and Remedy, it wasn't a huge project. It was sort of almost AAA production value, but perhaps without the budget. I don't know if Remedy now certainly have scaled up in terms of they've got Max Payne 1 and 2 remakes working, they've got Control sequel, they've got the Firebreak, the Control multiplayer title. They've got a lot that they're cooking. And you'd have to assume, off the back of the Alan Wake DLC, that we're going to be getting further installments in their Remedy connected universe. I'm just thrilled for that team. I'm just so pleased that they have been able to get that game to a point where it's profitable. I wonder actually if the physical release and the DLC might have tipped that over the line for them into profitability, which is great.
You would think it will come to PlayStation Plus and Game Pass at some point, and that will be another, that's just pure profit then when they get those deals in place.
And if they're clever, put the standard edition on it, so people buy the season pass or buy the DLC, and that's more sales for you there, more revenue.
Yeah, and hopefully it'll be well timed with whatever's coming next from them.
Firebreak is next, isn't it? I think Firebreak, and that's PlayStation Plus and Game Pass. That's dropping into.
Yeah. It seems like we haven't been doing System Link that long, but I think this will be the third time that we've mentioned some sort of it's nearly profitable, it's basically profitable, and now it is profitable.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, you can mark the moment.
Quite funny.
12th of Feb. Nice to be able to finally say that they've hit that target.
It does just go to show though how thin the line is between, because it was really critically acclaimed, and the reception was great. It seemed to be doing well, and like you say, 2 million copies for that game to have to sell 2 million to start making a profit.
Right.
That could have got, if it wasn't a good game or wasn't an exceptional game even, it probably would have sold 1 million, and probably getting from 1 to 2 million is not realistic when you're this far from launch.
Mm-hmm.
So it must be really scary for a team like that, knowing you really have to smash it out the park to get profitability for your game. And luckily they did, or they've got great pedigree, so it's probably not surprising, but it still must be a concern
for sure. And that for them, I suppose, too, when they've put all this effort into crafting this connected universe and they've made their games all narratively linked together, you don't then want that to be, there was the Disney talked about with the MCU, the first Iron Man film. If that hadn't landed the way that it did, then the Avengers wouldn't have occurred. All those films and TV shows that we sort of almost take for granted now, this 40 strong set of media from them. It just goes to show, doesn't it, how much was riding potentially on something like Alan Wake 2, finding that success and justifying that ongoing investment for them.
Well, yeah, and they're a team that I think has pride in what they do. They wouldn't just put out like a licensed game or something, get some money in, or I guess maybe the Max Payne remakes are kind of that of that ilk. Sure. I'm sure they want to do the game justice, but it is something that will sell well and probably isn't going to cost them a huge amount. It's not the same as making Alan Wake 3 probably.
Well, actually, and this never came up in our previous conversations, but they bought the rights of Alan Wake from Microsoft years ago, before Alan Wake 2 was even announced. So that probably is factored into this profitability conversation. I've never even considered that. Is that was a huge investment just to buy the IP itself, let alone actually the pre-production, development and release of the game itself. So that definitely would have played a hand. They had to they didn't have the rights to that thing before they started making it. So that definitely would have perhaps inflated the overall development budget for that game.
Yeah.
So Couple of things. We had a title that you and I fondly remember. We had a great time in Rumbleverse. It's one of our sort of guilty pleasures when that first released. Didn't really last very long. It was really disappointing to see that go. And developer Iron Galaxy have recently just been hit by some layoffs. These guys are also behind the Killer Instinct reboot. 66 developers were confirmed to have lost their jobs, which is, I saw there was something, I forget, I think it might have been Unity. Unity announced recently some other layoffs the engine developer Unity also being hit by cutbacks.
There was some from Crytek as well today.
Yeah, that Crisis 4 was on hold because of it, or at least the development's going to be delayed as a result. Just coming in strong with another set of really, really unfortunate news there, and it's such a shame given the fact that particularly Crytek has kind of re-emerged, out of bankruptcy, and it kind of found a new lease of life. They bought the IP's rights back, and Crisis 4 was announced. It was a big thing that series again had been laying dormant since like 2011, 2012. So the fact that they were able to, revisit it was really really exciting. So quite concerning there, especially someone like Iron Galaxy who have they've Frostpunk and Killer Instinct and Rumbleverse. They've had multiple titles ongoing. They're quite a prolific AA developer, and it's such a shame to see them struggling to pay the bills and maintain their staff body. It's just another tough to find a silver lining kind of moment there.
Yeah, it's like we were saying last week. I think that it's so risky doing free to play, especially if it's your only game. You don't have. We talked about having potentially multiple projects on. So if your live service thing doesn't work out, you've got some revenue coming in from something else you're doing. But if you've got your whole team working on that and it only lasts however long that lasted, a year or less, it's tough. Yeah, it's hard to. It's inevitable, isn't it, that you're going to have to lose some people, unfortunately.
Yeah, especially if you've a lot of those. I wonder how many of them are contractors coming in. Like it could be like QA, part-time, getting a game over the line. I imagine a lot of that would be that. The intention being as we'd hope they could keep as many of them as possible, but perhaps that isn't just viable for some cases if projects don't meet their targets.
Well, it must be so quite disheartening if you're like a long-term person at the studio and you've made this game Rumbleverse, which for all intents and purposes was a pretty good game. There wasn't anything wrong with it. It was good fun. And then you're thinking, if this is a success, we can go and do something else that's like really bold or creative. Everyone's looking forward to it. But then instead, they've lost loads of people. They'll probably have to do something much less ambitious. Maybe work with someone else on another game. Be more of like a partner studio. And this is what was coming from Crytek as well. They want to make Crysis, and they can't now because it's too risky for them to do their own thing like that. So they've got to kind of focus on something else, and it must be very depressing for the developers that want to stay there and kind of work on exciting new stuff.
And really stifling creatively too, because you'll have team members in any position wanting to pitch stuff, and if they have a culture in their studio where they want people then throwing in ideas, it creates that sort of instant barrier to those things being explored and them actually being able to do the things they really love. It's where, circling back to Remedy, they have fiercely fought for their independence, and they make that very public in a lot of their financial statements and their press releases. They do refer to themselves as being a sort of an ongoing independent studio, and that's something that's very important to them. I look at Hazelight in a similar way. They have the EA Originals branding, but there's not any real sort of creative input from EA or mandate there. I'm not really sure how EA Originals works as a label. I think it's more of just a brand awareness thing, that in terms of a deal, it's not they're not affecting budget or the types of projects they're making. They too seem to really take great pride in their retaining their independence and having the creative freedom to make the games they want to make. So it's tough news.
And then you have to swallow. And then you have teams that are basically make maps for Call of Duty or Battlefield or Criterion, who obviously wants a really strong creative developer that you have to say probably aren't now. But then, if you're a parent and you've got kids and a family to look after, would you rather work for a company where, like Iron Galaxy, where it's kind of touch and go how the game's going to land and if you're still going to have your job, or would you rather work for a support studio that pretty reliably, they've got contracts in place with whoever, EA or Microsoft or whatever, or Activision to fund your development for the next load of projects. You know, Call of Duty is going to still be there in 5-10 years time, and probably your studio is still going to be helping them make it. So
it might
it's
not
a
be the
toss
thing
up, isn't it?
that excites you creatively, but it is going to, pay the bills. So there's that sort of necessity versus creativity argument that's always such a tricky thing to navigate. We've got a couple of rounds now of some previews that have been dropping lately. The first being for the multiplayer Elden Ring not sequel directly, is it? It's not an expansion either. It's sort of like a standalone multiplayer title. Night Rain, with it's given its release date end of May, sooner than I think people were thinking. That's arriving a lot quicker. This year shaping up to be a pretty exciting one in terms of quite hefty releases. And there's been some early impressions, people saying that it is a really great evolution of that formula. I'm certainly more interested in giving it a go because it's co-op than I ever have been in previous titles. So I think Big Manny might be apologies if I'm speaking out of turn here, but I feel like he popped in the Discord. He got into the playtest.
Big Manny's in. Yeah,
he's in. Right.
So we're waiting for your
waiting for those. I don't know if there's any NDA attached to that, so please don't breach it in the name of Burly Bird. But if you are able to share your impressions once you've been able to give it a shot, that would be amazing. I know everyone would be looking forward to hearing your thoughts on that. So please jump into the Discord and share what you think.
A bit weird they didn't hold it for the state of play, but maybe they're focusing on. Hopefully, they're focusing on more exclusive kind of stuff. So
might get a gameplay look.
Strange timing.
Might get a gameplay look at that potentially. You know it because I almost feel bring it up sort of bi-weekly. But South of Midnight is my most anticipated for this year. The previews seem to confirm everything. As far as I know, I can stream it. I definitely will if I can. Nice one, Big Manny. We'll be sharing that stream. Put it in creativity in the Discord, and we'll make sure we share that when you go live. So, South of Midnight, my most anticipated of the year. Previews seem to be... I read quite a few, actually. I wanted to get a good flavour of what people were thinking. It seemed to be unanimous in that people were loving the presentation and the story. The narrative was something they really connected with, which we'd said, weren't we, that as much as it looks great and looks like the gameplay's interesting, without that narrative hook, it's not going to keep people invested, and that seems to be the most positive thing. People not necessarily able to sort of comment too much on the combat yet. The sequences that have been in the preview weren't too combat heavy. There was a couple of encounters, but nothing sort of too, in terms of like extended, which actually suggests to me that it isn't a major part of the game, or at least it's not the emphasis of the gameplay. It seems to be more on exploration and story with pockets of combat. It looks like the kind of combat zones or boss fights you end up going into. It looks stunning. It's sort of one of those things where, and I say that not just graphically, but just in terms of its art design and its the way sort of those spaces are designed, a bit more open than I thought. And also, I read in one of I think it was the Windows Central piece, they're saying that significantly more platforming, more of a platformer than perhaps trailers had suggested.
Yeah, which makes it appeal more to me because I'm still not sold on the combat, and I've seen a few people somewhat critical of the combat, but I think that the demo that they've played is like midway through the game, or it jumps around. It's hard to kind of learn the combat in the way that a new player will learn the combat, and the story is also disjointed because you're joining halfway through. So I think given the way that's been presented, I think the sentiment seems to be really good. I think the fact that they've given people like a middle chunk of the game is a good sign, because it suggests they want to hold the start of the game back for release rather than letting people release videos of it and stuff, which I think shows a bit of pride in your narrative. So
and confidence with how far through they are in terms of development. We're getting this thing in April, a couple months, and this thing's drops. So still no confirmation of a PlayStation release. I have actually been wondering. We'll save it. We'll get there. But I've been wondering if we see any Xbox studios pop up at State of Play.
I mean, I think it's almost.
Can I see a poll?
We'll get to it. We'll
get there. We'll get there. But yeah, it's reaffirmed my excitement for it, and I think actually I hadn't clocked you said about the preview being in the middle. That's a really good point, to preserve that story experience, because I certainly don't want anything spoiled now. This actually might be one of those. I haven't watched any footage from any of those previews. I've watched nothing. So normally I'm just soaking up trailers, but I think I'm good. I'm gonna go in dark now.
I think it was all around what we've seen already.
Okay.
The same sort of encounters that we've seen already. So I'm guessing the game does have a few different biomes or whatever that it's set in. But it was very much what we've seen in the trailers. So
Great.
quite sensibly placed. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. That's just exactly the approach they should take with that. Absolutely. Some really interesting stuff coming out recently about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 seems to first of all have sold really well. I've got that. I picked up that £6 sale version of the original game because I'm going to get to that.
Nice.
I'm going to get.
I've been playing it a lot. The first one.
Yeah, great. And the second one just seems to have been received really well. They confirmed mod support as well today, I saw, which is really exciting for them. It's going to so engage that PC community, which is a really cool thing. But just generally speaking, just some really positive sentiment around how well optimized it's been across Series S and all of its platforms. It's nice to see too confirmation of both Avowed and South of Midnight getting 60 frames modes as well. They're getting performance modes, which just gets rid of that narrative that there's an issue with those things. Like Indie having 60 as well was really cool. So it just stops that conversation from happening. When you've got PlayStation sitting there with PS5 Pro and you're going to have a lot of Xbox Studios games potentially looking and running better on a rival platform, anything you can do with those games that do have an exclusivity window, like South of Midnight, like Avowed, or no, is Avowed PS5 as well?
Not yet.
No, it's coming. It's coming. Save it. Anything that they can do to just nullify those issues, I think is really smart. And it looks like, Kingdom Come, again, AA team, not a big AAA budget, seems to have optimized the game really well for that.
I think
platform.
I'm guessing it's built on the first game, because they've been able to, for a small team, they've been able to turn this massive game around, relatively quickly in the standards of present day. So I guess because it's built on that, it's been easier for them to scale it down for like Series S. But it all looks really promising. Haven't seen any negativity around it other than the usual woke mob, anti-woke stuff. But I can't wait to play it. But I'm going to try to finish the first one before I dive in.
Cool, little 1-2 punch there. Something that we talked about with Switch, and now we're on our next headline talking about the potential pricing of Switch 2. And I want to just say the headline and go straight to Mike from the Xbox guide.
I want to bet from you on this.
Okay, so
because I'm not sure if we've talked about it already.
No, we haven't.
I think we. Okay.
We definitely discussed price, but we certainly haven't locked in a bet, and we're going to do our bet tracker in the Discord. So we're going to make sure. I think a couple bets got locked in and lost. We just haven't done them.
I've done it in the interim. I've got your bets in a spreadsheet.
No way. Okay. Oh, so the bets are locked, but I rescind my point. So yeah, absolutely. Okay, so all good. So I'm locked. Well, were either of the bets, was it Mario Kart and GTA?
I've got to tell you that I wouldn't be very confident if I. So you said GTA will not slip. Will slip to 26.
Yes,
if it comes out in 25, you've got to do. I'd something to do with like present the show as Pumpkin or something.
I do the intro as Pumpkin in front of my face. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other one
Mario Kart. It was Mario Kart.
It's not cross-gen. Mario Kart is not cross-gen.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. I wouldn't. Anyway, we'll see.
What was my wager on that?
Good question.
Was it something like I had?
Write a letter to Miyamoto.
Yeah,
thanking him about Super Mario All Stars.
That's right.
Being
delisted. Limited both physically and digitally. That's right. Yes. Well, okay, great. So the bet tracker is live. We'll put that in the Discord. So we'll have a bet tracker channel just so we can keep a look at that. So I want to get your thoughts on this quotation from Nintendo about the affordability of the pricing they set for Switch 2, and then we'll tennis match it back to me, and I'll put some kind of bet and wager in place there. Nintendo said that when shaping expectations for Switch 2's launch price point, that they will consider the affordability that customers expect from them. Now, first of all, fuck you, Nintendo Joy-Cons.
Fuck you, game pricing and
generally speaking, right? That is something that is wonky.
Not an affordable ecosystem. It's an affordable console usually, but it's not an affordable ecosystem to be part of especially compared to Xbox. That rankled me a little bit.
I'll bet.
You can imagine me sitting here rocking backwards and forwards in my
seething
chair.
with it, absolutely. Am I to reasonably then, given the fact you've just been going back and verifying bets, that you want me to lock down my... Can we both do... I think you need a bet right
I think
now.
let's just discuss pricing.
Yeah, let's discuss
because
pricing.
I think the problem they have is that they want to keep supporting Switch One, which is understandable. I think they want to keep selling Switch One to an extent, and so they can't price it cheaper than Switch One, which has held its price relatively well. And obviously you've got the OLED one, which is still going to be around, and got to price it carefully because you don't want the Switch 2 to be cheaper than the Switch 1 OLED, presumably. I don't know what the Switch 1 OLED cost is, but there's just a few things when you're releasing an iterative console that you just got to think about with the pricing. But we know that the hardware components are expensive, and looking ahead to the next PlayStation and the next Xbox and the Xbox handheld, it's going to be extremely hard for them to price them anywhere near the price of the PS5 base and Xbox base.
For sure. Especially when you look at where the Pro is right now. I mean, that's potentially indicative of where Sony are going to go with their future hardware, so we don't know quite what that's going to look like. Let's lock in some bets. Let's lock in the pricing. Let's do it.
Well, so I've got a full disclosure. I watched Digital Foundry talking about this. This is why I put it on the agenda, because I saw the quote, and it was like, is it enough for us to have a discussion about, which probably was, but yeah, I watched Digital Foundry's analysis of it, and I think originally I was thinking it was going to come in relatively cheap. And now I'm basically, based on what they're saying, I'm not particularly sure about that. But then why would you put a quote out saying you're going to consider affordability if you're going to price it at like $450? Is there? I wanted to ask you first. What would be too much for you to get it day one?
500.
No, not 500. Okay.
Yeah. Because it is a secondary platform for me. I like owning the hardware, but it's a secondary platform for me.
Is that 500 standalone or 500 with Mario Kart?
500 standalone.
Okay.
That's pushing it for me day one, I think. Here's what I'm going to lock in my bet.
Okay.
$399.
Okay.
That's where I've landed. $399.
Okay.
That's where I'm going to go.
Yeah, that would be bold, and I think they'd probably be losing money on it.
Yeah.
Which would be interesting because they don't normally do that. But obviously we don't know. They've probably got some deals. The Digital Foundry was saying that the yen is really weak at the moment, which will make it. So what Sony have done is they have basically, because they're quite flat. We were saying with the PS5 Pro, why is it like the same in dollars as it is in pounds as it is in euros? And it's just that it's really, really expensive in Japan. But they've done that so they can kind of maintain price parity and not have people being able to buy it from the US really cheaply, or import it. So yeah, the currency conversion is a bit of a problem. But the way around that is to overprice it in Japan, basically, and they just have to swallow it.
They take the hit
sure
over there. Yeah, and I actually wondered if they end up making a slight loss on the hardware, is if they push their game pricing as standard to 60 rather than 50, and have Mario Kart 9 as a launch title at 60, because they know it's going to sell just a barnstorming amount, and they kind of recoup some of the cost there. Plus also, if Mario Kart 9 is pushed or bundled alongside Switch Online, and they push the online side of that to that, tying it together, there's money to be made there for sure for them. So $399, and my bet's going to be is if they go higher than that. If I'm wrong, not if they're cheaper. I mean, that I don't feel like I need.
Yeah, well, I'll say I think it will be 450. Digital Foundry said 400. Most of them said 400. A couple of them were talking about
I haven't looked at any of this stuff, so that was a genuine live thought there from me.
Yeah, I think, but looking on Amazon now, so OLED Switch with Splatoon. It's a special edition Switch, but whatever. 480.
Okay.
Just, I don't know. Like it's just tough. Obviously, it's got a game bundled. I Yeah, four. I could see it being for like 449, and then with Mario Kart, like 499, and they'll do a bundle for 499 with Mario Kart maybe.
For
If it was 500 and you've got to buy Mario Kart like 560 quid.
and a Pro controller because you don't want the Joy-Cons. Now you're talking £600 for a
Do we
Switch
know
2
if the
bundle.
surely the Pro controllers will work, won't they?
Yeah, I mean, if they're backwards compatible with Switch 1 games, then surely. Just for audio listeners, by the way, if you are missing out massively on what Pumpkin is doing right now, what he's allowing me to do, he's getting scrumbled right now, live on camera, and he's having the best time ever. Look at his stupid little face. Audio listeners, get on the VOD.
Oh.
Please check this out. Sorry. It's true, though. Look at him. So, should we... Okay, rather than doing the high-low as the wager, let's just... We've locked in our prices. So the consequence needs to now be discussed if whoever's wrong, basically, or sort of the closest. If we do it based on the closest match, the closest price. Horrible if they go 425, fuckers. If they go 425, but
Yeah.
So we need some kind of penance. So we've said obviously, I'm gonna, if I get the GTA date wrong, Pumpkin's gonna introduce a show, and I have to do a pantomimed sequence with him. If Mario Kart is cross-gen, then I have to write a letter to Shigsy thanking him for the All-Stars being restricted. So
I think mine needs to be some sort of Nintendo like fanboy. I have to like wear a Nintendo hat or something for the show. Buy a Nintendo hat, give Nintendo money, and wear it for the show.
And it's from the. Can I mandate something there that it's from the official Nintendo store?
Yeah, it has to be,
it's from their online.
It'll be overpriced.
Overpriced for sure. And it's not a pre-order bonus. You're not allowed to use something that's like you pre-ordered a game and you got it free.
I can't get it second hand.
You have to spend money with Nintendo. Okay. I feel like therefore I need to have a similarly financial related penance.
Oh no, it doesn't have.
No, but that's fun though. I quite like the high stakes of that. Let's think of something that I would never want to spend money on, because that's ultimately where we're going with that, right? So
I'm trying to think, who do you it's difficult because you're so positive about everything, but there must be something that you would really annoy you to.
If you can find and think of some kind of puzzle game that I would never buy, or merch for something like that I would never be into.
Yeah, but I want it needs to, so like me having a Nintendo hat, it would be quite cool to have a Nintendo hat. As much as I don't buy, it's so there's a silver lining to it.
Sure.
But I wouldn't just go out and buy one because I don't want to give Nintendo money. But like so I don't want you to just waste money on a puzzle game. So it needs to be something that has a silver lining, but you would never want to kind of sanction. So yeah, we'll have a think about that.
Okay, so I've got
suggestions in a Discord, please.
I do have something though.
Okay.
We could do a little tie-in with Plasma Conduit, our Star Trek podcast. Is I will find a Neelix chef hat from Voyager, and I will wear that on a stream. I'll wear that on a Burly Bird Live. I'll put it on Burly Bird Live. I will wear a Neelix hat.
I do like that, but along those lines, I don't know why it has to be Star Trek related, but we could like pay for a signature from someone that you really dislike, a Star Trek actor. Because they're not that. They're probably
if
not
I
that
got like
expensive,
an autograph from the guy that plays Stamets in Discovery, who I'm not a fan of that character at all.
Totally.
So we're going to be doing something around that. So then Nintendo hat purchase from the official store for you if you're wrong, and then this is good stuff.
We
first
to check the prices on that.
we have to check the budget. So and then some kind of, whether it's an autograph from someone I don't like. Or I quite like the idea of a hat penance. I think that's quite a fun.
Yeah, the hat is
so
good.
I'll
Maybe
get like a Neelix
signed Neelix hat.
Neelix chef hat. That's great. By the way, tune into Plasma Conduit, now available on YouTube. Our first episode's up. Darmok, what an absolutely legendary episode. I'm feeling pretty good about our second pick there, by the way. For those of you that tuned into that podcast, we're going to be looking at the Star Trek Enterprise episode Twilight. I think we're shooting that pretty soon, aren't we, Mike? I think we've got that coming up in the next few days.
This week, yeah.
Yeah, so do check that out. If you're into Trek and you fancy something a bit different, then please do have a little peeky at that podcast. It's available on YouTube, as well as all of our Podbean and Spotify. Our audio versions are up there as well. So our deep dive tonight, and actually the state of play would have just begun as we were recording.
And now
I've got
it on in another tab because I feel like it's kind of redundant for us to be saying what's going to happen at the state of play, and then like stuff will have already happened. So we can talk about what we think, and then if stuff happens while we're talking,
then we can update.
Cool, but,
I think it's nice too for us, especially because we've got then a library of these podcasts for us to be kind of sharing going into this, having not seen it. What were we hoping to see? What was it? Not predictions necessarily, because it's happening right now, but stuff we'd like to see from their first party. I just would like a date for a major first party title come out this state of play. So I really would hope to see Ghost of Yotai or Wolverine getting some kind of window or date. Really cool. Wolverine being confirmed for this year would be pretty huge, I think. I don't know how realistic that is. Certainly to go up against Fable at the end of the year. That's my microphone.
Wolverine and Ghost of Yotai would be pretty good. Yeah, better than last year. Good for like what's still considered probably quite a fallow period. It would be nice to have one or two other smaller titles, but I think we probably have to wait for the summer to hear about that kind of thing. They still probably need something, in this half of the year, but potentially Microsoft are filling that void. We'll wait and see. Wouldn't surprise me if they at least just we got a date for Forza Horizon, so maybe they
April,
won't show that. But,
I believe.
Hellblade 2 I saw was rumored earlier this week as being the next game coming, and it would make sense that they announced that here, and I think it would be very quick turnaround on that one probably.
Yes, I agree. So, Death Stranding 2 I think also likely to have some kind of appearance there. It's interesting you mentioned about Forza. Several buddies of mine who are sort of staunch PlayStation fans, they used to be Xbox owners in the 360 era and then abandoned ship for PS4, cannot wait for Forza. They're so excited, and it's putting Microsoft in a position where they might become one of the biggest third-party publishers on the planet because of these games suddenly opening up. So this could really, really pay off for them as long as they maintain the sort of the worth of their subservice by giving people reasons to stay invested with early access, essentially with exclusivity windows, and their next hardware being offering something that PlayStation doesn't. That's what will sell those boxes. The hardware being unique. I think I'm looking forward to that. I do long for the GameCube weird era where things were really bespoke and really, even the PS3. I know that it was tough to develop for, but that was a really, at the time, really unique piece of hardware that had a Blu-ray player in it. That was a massive deal for them. It changed the course of that HD DVD Blu-ray race, was the PlayStation 3 having it built in. So I hope that that's the angle they take. We get some really exciting sort of unique hardware, and they preserve the sanctity of their subservice by making it valuable still. And I hope then, switching gears now back to PlayStation, that what this state of play then shows is them going, okay, we pivoted away from live service, but let's map out at least the next 12 months, 18 months. This is what you can expect from us. Even if it's just Windows, I think it's important to give people a flavour of what they're kind of shooting for and to get excited about in the year. So Wolverine, Ghost of Yotai, I put it over to our Discord community. We did our community question, sort of what they're hoping to see from PlayStation first party generally, not necessarily from this state of play, which will kind of make this episode have a bit more of a half-life to it. And Heinkiko in Discord mentioned both Bloodborne coming to PC, a remake of Bloodborne, and also, and this is the one I really liked, Little Big Planet 4. I'd love that series to come back. Not a clue what Media Molecule are working on right now, so they've been dormant for a while. They've been very quiet since Dream shut down. Big Manny in the Discord as well, saying The Last of Us remake feels inevitable. Surely not at this point. We should be done with that now. If you're making Intergalactic, if anything else is coming out Last of Us, it's got to be a part 3. So, but I don't think we're going to see anything like that for a while. He did mention that it'd be really nice to see what Sony Santa Monica are cooking up. Maybe the next God of War, given how successful Ragnarok was. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a third one. But equally, I'd quite like to see that team do what Naughty Dog are doing. Tackle a new IP, something that we assume Sony Bend are probably working on a new IP. We know it's not Days Gone 2. So it'd be nice to see them, again, follow that pivot away from live service and make something really unique. He mentioned also the Elden Ring Night Rain news, but that's obviously all come kind of dropped before the show. So that's kind of where we're at from our community response there. So, but yeah, so it's going to be an interesting one. I think I would just like to see, I think, some clear release windows and a couple of their big studios give us an insight into what they're planning. So Ghost of Yotei, Wolverine, and we know we've got Intergalactic coming as well. So that would be one of those popping up with a release window would be lovely.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? Because studios get criticized, and Xbox has been criticized a lot for announcing stuff too early, like State of Decay 3, especially, and Everwild and things like that.
Justified criticism as well, I think, there.
Yeah. But when you're in the position that PlayStation are in now, where people are saying the roadmap's non-existent, you've cancelled a load of games, so all these studios are going to be like 5-6 years out from their next project. I think if there is the possibility to reassure people in the way that we have seen at a few of these shows in the past, where you even just get a logo to say that something's coming at some point, or a very rough window, just to give people a bit of confidence in the platform. But Microsoft have massively helped them, because I think if Hellblade 2, I don't think is going to do much. But say you get Master Chief Collection or the Gears Collection, or Gears 1 or something, that on PlayStation, that will be almost as good as a first party game. Yep. I mean, Forza Horizon, I think, is equivalent to a first party PlayStation release, because it's so high quality, and people on PlayStation, if you haven't had an Xbox or a good enough PC, you haven't played that series for years.
I know that there are people actively in my life that cannot wait for that release, and
it'll be the same with Master Chief and Gears.
Yeah, well, you mentioned
probably
Master Chief.
Nothing else, I don't think, but
no, but those core franchises, I think, for sure. And then it'll open up, right? Because then people might dip into PC Game Pass and try some stuff out, and that then opens things up a little bit. You've got Indie coming out in March. Don't forget, that's coming.
That's very true.
Soon.
Yeah.
We're getting that as well.
We have to. Once Forza will be really successful, and then it will move. I think it will move, like we said before, from however many years it's been since Horizon came out. It will be at most it'll be a year, won't it? From the next one, they're not going to have because I think we're almost in a bit of a false position at the moment, because it feels like Xbox, they just wait years and years and years, and eventually they'll put it on PlayStation. It will sell really well, and that's like an ideal situation, because it doesn't piss too many Xbox owners off. It's like, oh, it's an old game, I played it 3 years ago.
That's extra revenue for them too.
But that won't be the case in the future when the new. I think Starfield is a special case, possibly due to the engine, and that's why it's taken so long. I feel like if it was possible to have turned that around in a year, they would have done that.
If that had been made in Unreal, PlayStation 5 would have a version right now, I think, for sure, given how ubiquitous that engine is. I mean, my Burly from Burly and the T here at Burly Bird Media said that if the Master Chief Collection comes out on PlayStation, this just shows you how much he still likes those IP. He said, I'm taking a weekend and smashing through them. So he's all in. And I think it would also, you get that out, you then port Infinite a few months later as a free-to-play game, injection of a player base that's now enthused by Master Chief Collection. We know Halo Studios are working on the next Halo. You make that Halo a year's exclusive to Xbox and PC. You're going to get people wanting to get in as early as possible. It's going to drive sales. It's going to drive subs.
Yeah, that just made me think of a pretty crazy thing, which is PS4 owners that will buy PS5 to play Halo or Forza Horizon as well.
Yeah.
They're
going to upgrade because
consoles.
Yeah.
And I think people will. There'll be some people that are that eager to play Forza Horizon and Halo that they will buy a PS5 for it, because we've talked about your digital catalog being the thing that's stopping people now from switching.
It
would stop me from switching to PlayStation as my only platform. I'd do it as a second console, but if you're on PS4, you're only going to move to PS5, and that and GTA is a pretty compelling.
Could be a big driver of that, right? This is 2025 is already been set up for me as a really, really interesting year in gaming, and this is all just one aspect of that, to see what lies ahead. thanks everyone so much for tuning in to this latest episode of System Link. You can find us on Threads, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Podbean, and our Discord, all at Burly Bird Media. Also, burlybirdmedia.com. We're going to be doing a bit of a refresh on that. And next week, I get to have some bit of time off from my day job, from teaching. So I'm looking forward to finally being able to get back into regular content and getting that up there. So please do consider checking that out. We're going to post up the video on demand version of our System Link podcast that we record right here on twitch.tv/burlybirdmedia. We'll be posting that up on a Thursday alongside the Podbean and Spotify versions for audio listeners. Mike, where can people find you?
I am at the xboxguide.com and at the Xbox Guide on Threads and Blue Sky. Probably not a huge amount of new content coming in the next couple of weeks, but if you check out the site, it kind of pulls in news and articles from around the Xbox ecosystem. So it's worth keeping it on your list of places that you check out every day if you can.
Yeah, that's what I certainly do. So thanks again, everyone, for tuning in. Big Manny, shout out again, as always, jumping into chat. And we will see you next time.
See ya.